Welcome to Created Healthy. I'm Dawn Combs. It's a common idea that God gave us everything we need in nature, but do we believe it enough to walk that out in truth? Often the very same people who say this go looking for answers on how to use food and medicine from man-made sources. Everything man creates comes with a user's manual. Why would God be any different? I challenge you to join me in seeking revelation about our body, mind, soul, and spirit health by digging into His written word and in practicing pure science in the visible world of His creation.
Why is being clean so important to God? Well, I think today I want to challenge the idea of clean and suggest that maybe we humans have attached what we think that means. We have put our own values on clean, and it maybe isn't what God meant. So we're in Leviticus 9 through 12, and in our last reading in Leviticus 8, Aaron and his sons become consecrated, and there was a really important ceremony there that Moses put blood of the sacrifice that was laid down for these men to give over their lives in service. He put some of that blood on the lobe of their right ear, the thumb of their right hand, and the big toe of their right foot, which is kind of a fun way. I think a lot of scholars do see this as they need to be hearing better. They need to be mindful of how they hear God and how they hear the people, mindful of how they use their hands, and mindful of where they are walking, where their walk goes. After this decoration, they are then locked in. They stay in for 7 days. And we pick up on the 8th day here in Leviticus 9 through 12. Moses gives instructions for a big sacrifice that is going to be an atonement offering for everybody there, the priests and the people. And he's following God's instruction, and all along we see how very particular God is about here's how to arrange the temple, and here's exactly where to sacrifice the animal, and exactly where to put the blood and the skin. And unfortunately, we have this really awful moment where Aaron has two sons, Nadab and Abihu, who decide that they're going to add their own flair. And so in this moment of this huge sacrifice that is part of consecrating their family and setting them aside as holy unto God, they decide to do some extra theatrics outside of the tent of meeting. And God is not contained within the space and rushes out and touches them and burns them up. This is you think about the human aspect of this. Aaron is standing there and he witnesses this. And Moses, these are his relatives as well. Aaron is his brother. So his nephews just got killed. And Moses turns to Aaron and grabs a hold of him and says, you cannot mourn. You have to keep going. This is a critical moment. You must keep it together. You must be an example here of how to accept God's awesome power and why it's so critical that we follow the instructions to keep ourselves safe. And so he says the people can mourn. The people can go about all of the demonstrations of this loss, but Aaron has to keep it together. And so Aaron is asked to swallow his loss and his sadness, and to do his job, to stand in this gap between God and the people. Really highlighting the sacrifice that it takes to do that. But it's an important moment because of what we're talking about, this idea of clean. We go on into chapter 11, where God lays out this notion of clean and unclean animals. And of course, this is interesting to me because I am very interested in what God is telling us about what to eat and what not to eat and how to maintain our health. And here we have prohibitions against anything that divides its hoofs, that doesn't chew its cud and also divides its hoof. So we wind up with monogastric animals being separated out. These are rabbits and pork, meaning you don't have multiple stomachs to digest what has gone into the mouth. So it's not being very, very well broken down. And interestingly enough, if a monogastric animal is not eating correctly, it can be, this is where we get, today we can see this in science, this is where we get bad cholesterol problems because of the animal being unhealthy and developing fat that is very high in PUFAs, PUFAs. So we do have a lot of things about fat. There's sacred fat that gets burnt on the altar. People are still eating fat with their meat. And I think that that's fascinating that if they weren't in a place where these types of animals were eating correctly, we might have had something that was actually harmful for humans. And it's a tricky place to be, to try to rationalize God's commandments and not just do them. But at this point, there is a reason for God to say we cannot eat pork and rabbits and chickens because those are monogastric animals as well. So fish, fins and scales, if they have those, we're good. If you don't have those, you can't eat them. Birds, he talks about birds and insects. Amphibians and reptiles were made unclean. And then there's this whole section of when a woman bears a child, when she is clean versus when she is unclean. And I think that it's really important for us to stop for a minute and think through what unclean and clean is, because in today's society, this cleanliness is next to godliness. Cleanliness is supposed to be good. We do this Cartesian duality of good, bad, ugly, pretty, evil, good, evil or divine. And I think that it's more complicated here. I think that if I read through all of the places that God is talking about unclean, it really starts to come across as you are not whole. You are imbalanced. Especially if you think about burying a loved one, you would have to touch their body and you would bury them. And that is one of the things that we see listed here, that touching the body of a loved one that has died would make you unclean. Now, it's a temporary uncleanness, but if I'm looking at it through a lens of this is making you weakened in some way, because the need for us to be whole before we stand before God, the wholeness or the cleanliness here, it is a stability, it is a strength that we need to be rock solid before we stand before something so powerful as God. Otherwise, he can burn us up. And this is something that I want to explore, that we can see in nature around us, that there is this need to be whole and not weakened, or we can be destroyed. There is evidence in nature for what I'm saying, and I think we can see in the text where unclean isn't this sinful or bad. You don't become sinful because you bury your loved one. You become weakened. If you bury your loved one, it would make you emotionally weakened. It would make your structure, your physical body, your emotional body, your spiritual, mental, you would be fragile. It would make you possible to be destroyed. And I think that all of this talk about clean, unclean, I think if we maybe look at it through the lens of solid, fully whole, balanced versus the opposite. God needs us to be whole. God values us to be whole and strong. And we broke that when we left the Garden of Eden. We became weakened with sin. We became weakened with illness. We became weakened with the trials that we would be under. And anything that compromises our wholeness makes us weaker. And then we'll go into the New Testament. We just read where Jesus' sacrifice, his blood sacrifice, makes us whole. Jesus makes us whole, so he makes us clean. We no longer need all of these sacrifices to make us clean, which of course all of this list of the things that might make us unclean or again compromised in some way, weakened. We have to make up for that before we stand before God, before we try to have a conversation with God, or else we can be destroyed. So just a few thoughts there on how I see this. I just don't see the unclean as bad. I don't think we need to put our human and our current Western cultural ideas on this as clean is good, unclean is bad. It's more complex. I pray that God is intriguing you, that his word is calling you, that a relationship with him is something that is becoming irresistible, and a closer relationship with him is becoming irresistible if you already know him. I pray that he brings you back to study again with me on another day. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share with a friend. And I'm always interested in hearing what God is laying on your heart. So drop me a rating or review, or join the conversation on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube at Dawn Combs Really.